I stood outside the courtroom doors, my hands shoved in my pockets so no one could see them shaking. Reporters lined the hallway, whispering behind their phones. In a few minutes, Elena would walk through those doors, and I still didn't know what she'd say to me. 9 years of marriage, and I was standing there like a stranger waiting for a verdict of my own. "You don't have to be here," Grace said, appearing beside me with 2 coffees she'd bought and forgotten to hand over. "Yes, I do," I said. "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." She didn't argue. She just handed me a cup and stood there, waiting with me the way she always did. Grace had never trusted Elena's world, and today she didn't need to say it. She just stayed. My mind drifted back 9 years to the first time I saw Elena. She was standing in front of a room full of men twice her age, defending a tactical plan they didn't want to admit was better than theirs. "You're wrong," one of them said flatly. "Then prove it," she said, not even blinking. I fell for her right there. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she refused to shrink. "Buy me a drink and tell me why you were smiling at my briefing," she said to me afterward. And that was it. That was the whole beginning. Right there in a crowded hallway. I built my life around her ambition after that. When she got stationed in Georgia, I left a promotion on the table and packed our apartment myself. When she made major, I turned down a job in Chicago so I wouldn't be the reason she hesitated. "You keep doing that," my father told me once. "Making yourself smaller so she can stand taller. It's not like that, Dad, isn't it? It's partnership. She'd do the same for me. Would she, though? Has she had to yet?" I didn't have an answer for that. Not then. I told myself it wasn't sacrifice. It was partnership. I believed that. For years, I believed that. Elena believed in me, too, in her own way. She used to call me from bases overseas just to hear about my day, my small, ordinary day, like it was the only normal thing left in her world. Tell me something boring, she'd say. Tell me about the grocery store. I bought the wrong pasta again. "Cool," Miss Booding. We were steady. Not equal, maybe. Her career always came first. Her schedule always won. But steady? I told myself steady was enough. Then one evening, she came home late, dropped her bag by the door, and said the name for the first time. They finally gave me a deputy. Major Ryan Holt. "Yeah, how is he?" "Sharp. Fast. Actually keeps up with me, which is rare." She smiled, tired but pleased. "It's going to make my life easier." "Good," I said, and I meant it. I refilled her water glass, asked if she'd eaten, and moved on to something else entirely. Whether we should repaint the kitchen, whether her mother was still coming for Christmas. I didn't ask a single follow-up question about him. Why would I? He was a name in a sentence, a colleague, a convenience. I had no reason to hold on to it. "You're quiet tonight," Elena said, watching me from the couch. "Just tired," I said. "Long day." She nodded and let it go, and so did I. I didn't know, standing in that kitchen with a paint swatch in my hand, that I'd just heard the name of the man who would end everything I'd spent 9 years building. I didn't know that sharp and fast would one day mean calculating and relentless. I didn't know that a stranger's name, said so casually over a tired sigh, could quietly rearrange the rest of my life. I didn't know anything yet. I just refilled her glass and asked about Christmas. Now, outside this courtroom, I finally understood. Some names arrive quietly, wrapped in tired smiles and ordinary sentences. They don't announce what they're about to take from you. They just wait. Ryan's name started showing up in every story Elena told me. The way a season changes without you noticing the first cold morning. "Ryan thinks we should restructure the whole unit," she said one night, barely looking up from her laptop. "Yeah, what do you think?" "I think he's right. He sees things I miss sometimes." I nodded and let it go. It was just one comment, one name. I didn't know yet that it would become a pattern. We met improperly at a dinner General Whitfield hosted for senior staff. Ryan walked in wearing his uniform like it was tailored for him personally. Shook my hand with a grip a little too firm, a smile a little too practiced. "So you're the husband," he said. "Elena talks about you. Good things, I hope." "Mostly logistics," he said, laughing at his own joke. Elena laughed too, easily, comfortably, and something in my chest tightened that I couldn't name yet. He talked all night about pressure, about command, about the weight of decisions that cost lives. I understand what she carries, he said, looking at Elena instead of me. Not everyone can. I felt small next to him, not because he said anything cruel, but because Elena kept nodding along like he was translating her own thoughts back to her better than she could. You were quiet tonight, Grace said the next morning, calling to check in like she always did. He's just confident. Some people are like that. I don't like how she talks about him. Danny, she respects him. That's not a crime. I'm serious. Watch it. I trust her, Grace. I trust my wife. I meant it when I said it. I believe trusting her meant not questioning her, not keeping score of a name that came up too often. I told myself jealousy was beneath me, but the cracks kept coming, small enough to explain away individually, impossible to ignore altogether. I can't do dinner Thursday, Elena said. Ryan and I have a late briefing. Again, it's the job, Daniel. You know that. I did know that. I'd known it for 9 years. But briefings didn't used to happen at 9 at night, and they didn't used to leave her checking her phone at the table, half smiling at something I couldn't see. Then she started saying things that weren't hers. Ryan thinks I should be more decisive at home, too, not just at work. He said that? About our marriage? Not exactly. But he's right, isn't he? I let things drag sometimes. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to argue with a man who wasn't even in the room, whose opinions had somehow become the lens Elena used to examine her own life, her own choices, me. Meanwhile, in a hallway I never walked down, Private Lena Ortiz stood outside Elena's office with a stack of files, watching Major Holt linger by the door long after his briefing had ended. It wasn't the first time she'd noticed him staying past the point of necessity, always finding one more reason, one more file, one more question that could have waited. You didn't need to stay this late, Elena said to him, not looking up. I don't mind, he said. I like making sure things are handled right. There was something in the way he said it, soft, deliberate, aimed less at the work in front of him and more at Elena herself. Lena watched him watch Elena a second too long before he finally turned to leave. She didn't say anything. It wasn't her place, she told herself. It was just a look. Officers stayed late all the time. It meant nothing. She filed away anyway, the way people file away things they're not ready to name. She told herself she'd mention it if it happened again. I didn't know about that hallway, that look, that late night. I only knew what I could see from where I stood. A wife quoting a man's opinions like scripture, a marriage quietly being edited by someone else's hand. I trust her, I told Grace again that week. Like repeating it enough times would make it true. I hope you're right, she said. I really do. I hung up the phone and told myself I was right. I told myself trust didn't mean watching. I told myself a lot of things that year, and for a while, they were almost enough to believe completely. I chose a Sunday morning to bring it up. Coffee still warm between us. No schedule pulling either of us away yet. Can we talk about something? I said. Elena set down her mug. Sure. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong exactly. I just miss you. I feel like I'm getting whatever's left over after work, after Ryan, after everything else. Her face changed before I even finished the sentence. That's not fair, Daniel. I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm just saying dinners get canceled, briefings run late. And when you're home, you're quoting things he said instead of just talking to me. You think I don't want to be here? You think command is easy? I never said that. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Ryan gets it because he's lived it. He knows what it's like to carry decisions that get people hurt or killed. You've never had to carry that. That's true. I haven't. But that doesn't mean I don't understand you. Doesn't it, though? Because half the time I feel like I have to explain myself to you. And with Ryan, I don't have to explain anything. He already knows. The room went quiet in a way that felt louder than shouting. She'd never compared us before, not out loud. Not like that. I'm not asking you to explain yourself, I said. I'm asking for time. I know, she said, softer now. I'm sorry. It's a lot right now. I let it go, because pushing further felt like it would break something I wasn't ready to break yet. But I noticed what had happened. For the first time, in our own kitchen, she'd chosen his understanding over mine, like his opinion outweighed 9 years of my own. I called my father that afternoon, needing to hear a voice that wasn't tangled up in any of it. You sound off, he said. I'm fine. Just tired. Danny, I've known you your whole life. Talk to me. I told him about Ryan, about the briefings, about Elena defending him like he was the only person who understood her. My father was quiet for a long moment. You know, I made first sergeant because a colonel took a liking to how I ran my platoon. He finally said, "Man named Whitcomb." Sharp as anything. I used to hang on every word he said. Thought he saw something in me nobody else did. What happened? Turned out he saw an opportunity, not a person. Took credit for 2 years of my work before anyone noticed. By the time I did, I'd already handed him everything. My ideas, my hours, my trust. Cost me almost as much as it cost him nothing. Are you saying Ryan's doing that to Elena? I'm not saying I know the man. I'm saying be careful who gets to define reality in a marriage. Once someone else's voice becomes the loudest one in the room, it's hard to get your own voice back in. Doesn't happen all at once. Happens one conversation at a time, until one day you wake up and you're arguing for a version of yourself that isn't really yours. That's a lot to put on one deputy. Dad. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just an old man who learned the hard way and doesn't want his son learning it the same one. I told him I'd keep an eye on it. I meant it. In the vague way people mean things they're not ready to act on yet. 2 weeks later, I stood at another staff function, listening to Ryan talk to a group of Elena's colleagues. It's tough when a spouse doesn't fully back the mission, he said, not looking at me directly, though everyone understood exactly who he meant. Elena's lucky she has people around her who actually get what she's building. A colonel nearby chuckled. Not everyone can handle a partner in command. I felt my jaw tighten, but I said nothing. Arguing would only prove whatever unspoken accusation he'd planted. General Whitfield walked past at that exact moment, nodding politely, noticing nothing. To him, it was just another conversation at another dinner, background noise in a room full of people he trusted to handle their own lives. I trusted them too once, standing there, smiling at people who thought I was a problem. I started to understand how easily trust could be rewritten by someone patient enough to do it slowly, one dinner at a time. Ryan started showing up in decisions that used to belong only to us. I was thinking Bali for our anniversary. I said one evening, pulling up flights on my laptop. Actually, Ryan mentioned Portugal. Said it's less crowded this time of year. Better for actually relaxing. Since when does Ryan plan our anniversary? He doesn't plan it, Daniel. He just travels a lot. He knows things. I closed the laptop without saying anything else. It wasn't about Portugal. It was about a name showing up in a conversation that had nothing to do with him. A week later, it was money. I want to move some savings into that fund Ryan mentioned. Elena said, he's done really well with his investments. You're taking financial advice from your deputy now? He's just sharing what works. You don't have to make it weird. I'm not making it weird. I'm asking why every decision in this house suddenly runs through him first. She didn't answer that one. She just changed the subject. The way she'd started doing whenever his name got too close to something personal, something that used to belong only to the two of us. Then I found the messages, not by searching, just by glancing at her phone screen while she showered, a notification lighting up before I could look away. Ryan Holt. Thought you'd find this useful. Sent you an article on leadership under pressure. Reminded me of our conversation last week. Elena already saved it. Reading tonight. It was 11 at night. There was nothing explicit in the words. Nothing I could point to and call proof of anything. But my stomach dropped anyway. The way it does when you sense a door quietly opening somewhere in your house that you didn't leave unlocked. You should look into it. Grace said when I told her. Look into what? A leadership article? Into him, Daniel. Check what you can. Talk to people who work with them. That feels insane. Like I'm spying on my own wife. You're not spying. You're paying attention. There's a difference. I don't want to be that guy. Grace. The paranoid husband checking phones and asking questions. If I start doing that, what does that say about my marriage? Maybe it says you're scared of what you'll find. I hung up on that thought more than on her, honestly. Investigating felt like admitting something was already broken, and I wasn't ready to admit that yet. The following weekend, we went to a barbecue at General Whitfield's house, the kind of event where everyone's spouse stood around making small talk while their partners discussed things we weren't clear to hear. That's when I met Sarah Holt. "You must be Daniel," she said, offering a tired smile. "Elena's husband. Ryan talks about the two of you. Good things, I hope," I said, the same line I'd use on Ryan. Feeling strange saying it to his wife. "Mostly logistics," she said, and laughed at her own echo of the same joke, not knowing she was repeating it. There was something soft and a little sad in the way she carried herself, like she was used to standing at the edges of rooms while her husband commanded the center of them. I recognized it because I'd started feeling the exact same way about myself, though I couldn't have explained why yet, not even to myself. "You get used to it," she said, watching Ryan hold court across the yard. "The late nights, the way work follows him home in his voice, even when he's technically off duty." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know that one." She looked at me a second longer than the conversation required, like she recognized something too, though neither of us said what it was. That night in the car, Elena finally snapped. "You were quiet the whole barbecue." "I was talking to Sarah." "You were staring at Ryan half the time." "What is your problem with him?" "My problem is that he's in every part of our life now. Our vacations, our finances, articles you read at midnight. When did that become normal? He's a colleague who happens to be good at his job. You're acting like he's some kind of threat." "Maybe I am, because it feels like Elena, it feels like you trust his opinion more than you trust mine." "That's not true, isn't it?" "Because from where I'm standing, it's starting to look exactly like that." She didn't answer. She just stared out the window the rest of the ride home, and for the first time, the silence between us felt less like exhaustion and more like a line being drawn, one neither of us was ready or willing to cross back over. The audit came up on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday, the whole house felt different. "We got a discrepancy in the division's contractor funds," Elena said, not even taking off her jacket before she started talking. "Someone flagged it in the quarterly review." "How bad?" "Bad enough that Whitfield wants answers by Friday." I asked if she needed help out of habit more than anything, and she waved it off, already pulling files out her bag, already somewhere else in her head. "Ryan came over that weekend, technically to help her prep for the review, though it felt strange having him at our kitchen table, going through numbers on our laptop like he belonged there. The contractor's name keeps coming up under a firm called Halden Group," he said, scrolling through a spreadsheet. "Isn't that the company your husband used to consult for?" I sat up straighter. "Years ago. Briefly. I haven't touched anything with them since." "I'm not saying anything," Ryan said, hands raised like he was stepping back from an accusation he'd just made. "Just flagging it, in case Whitfield asks. Better it comes from us than looks like we missed it." Elena looked at me for a long second, something unreadable behind her eyes. "You really haven't had any contact with them?" "None. Elena, I swear." "Okay," she said, but the word came out flat, unconvinced, like she was filing the question away instead of closing it. Over the next week, the questions kept coming, small and careful, each one landing like it wasn't really an accusation at all. "Did you ever recommend Halden Group to anyone in my division?" "No." "Did you know they'd bid on this contract?" "Elena, I didn't even know they still existed." "Ryan says their bid documents had unusual language in them. Said it reminded him of the kind of thing a former insider might write." "He said that? Specifically about me?" "He didn't say your name. He just said it was worth checking who used to be close to the company." "That's not fair, Elena. He's building a case against me without ever having the courage to say my name out loud." "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Because from where I'm standing, every question you've asked me this week started with something he mentioned first. You just seem defensive about it." "I'm not defensive. I'm confused why you're asking me the same question 5 different ways. I'm under a lot of pressure right now. Daniel, I need to know I'm not missing something obvious." "You're not missing anything. I promise you, I have nothing to do with this." She nodded, but the nodding didn't reach the rest of her face. For the first time, I understood I wasn't just losing her attention to Ryan anymore. Somehow, quietly, without a single direct accusation, I'd become a name on a page she couldn't fully rule out. I called Tom that night, needing someone who still saw me clearly. "You sound wrecked," he said. "I think I'm being set up, Tom." I don't know how else to explain it. "Set up how?" "Financial stuff at Elena's division. My name from years ago somehow keeps surfacing, and every time it does, It's Ryan bringing it up first, always sounding helpful, never sounding suspicious. Ryan Holt, the deputy? You know him? Not personally, but I've heard things. Guy's ambitious in a way that makes people nervous. I need to see those records, Tom. I need to know if this is coincidence or something else. I've still got access to some of the transfer logs from that period. I can pull what's public record and cross-reference the newer contracts. It'll take a few days, but I can look. Why would you do that for me? Because I've known you 15 years, and I've never once seen you cut a corner. If someone's using your name to cover their own mess, I want to know who. Thank you, Tom. I mean it. Don't thank me yet. If this is what it looks like, you're not going to like what we find. I sat in my car outside his house after we hung up, hands on the wheel, not driving anywhere yet. For weeks I'd told myself trusting Elena meant not investigating, not questioning, not becoming the paranoid husband Grace kept warning me I might turn into. But this wasn't jealousy anymore. This was my name on a document I'd never touched, my integrity quietly rewritten in rooms I wasn't invited into. I'm ready to stop waiting. I said out loud to no one in an empty car, the words feeling more like a promise than a thought. Whatever this was, I wasn't going to let someone else write the ending to it. Tom called me on a Thursday night, his voice tighter than I'd ever heard it. I found something, he said. You need to sit down for this. I'm sitting. Talk. The transfers from Halden Group don't trace back to you at all. They trace to a shell account, and the shell account routes back to a personal account under Ryan Holt's name. You're sure? I cross-referenced 3 different filings. Same signature pattern. Same routing number. Dated back 18 months. He's been quietly moving funds through an approval process Elena trusts him to oversee. So he built the whole thing and left my name close enough to make it look like a question mark. That's exactly what it looks like. Smart, actually. Ugly, but smart. I sat with that for a long moment, the walls of my own kitchen suddenly feeling smaller. What do I do with this, Tom? Not yet. We need dates matched to signatures, not just account numbers. If we go to Whitfield 2 early with half a picture, Ryan explains it away, and you're the one who looks paranoid. Okay, then we build the whole picture. Give me a week. I can pull the older transfer logs and match them against the newer contract dates. If the pattern holds, there won't be any room left for him to explain his way out. A week feels like a long time when my whole marriage is unraveling in real time. I know, but rushing this gets you nowhere except looking like the guy with a grudge. Let me do it right. Meanwhile, at home, Elena had stopped sounding like herself entirely. Ryan says loyalty isn't about defending someone blindly. She said one night, out of nowhere, mid-dinner, it's about seeing clearly, even when it's uncomfortable. That's an interesting thing for him to say about your own husband. I'm just saying, maybe it's time I looked at things more clearly, too. I didn't say anything back. There wasn't a version of that sentence I could argue with without sounding exactly like the defensive husband he'd already painted me as. Private Lena Ortiz found me outside the base gates a few days later, glancing over her shoulder before she spoke. Can we talk? Somewhere quiet? Of course. What's wrong? I should have said something months ago. I keep seeing Major Holt in the colonel's office, late, alone, going through files after everyone's left. Last week I saw him editing something on her computer using her login. Did you see what he changed? Approval signatures. Dates on contractor forms. I didn't think anything of it first, but after the audit started, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Lena, would you tell someone in internal affairs what you just told me? I'm scared. If I'm wrong, my career's over. And if you're right, and you say nothing, what happens to hers? To Elena's career, when this all comes out and people ask who saw it and stayed quiet. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either, and I knew she was closer to yes than she wanted to admit. Sarah Holt called me 2 days after that, her voice careful, like she'd practiced the words before dialing. I need to tell you something, and I don't know why I trust you with it, but I do. I'm listening. Ryan's been lying about his schedule for months. Late briefings that don't exist on any calendar. Weekend trips that turn into a few hours away. Not the overnights he claims. I thought it was one thing. Now I think it might be something else entirely. Sarah, I think it might be connected to what's happening at Elena's division. Her voice cracked slightly. I was afraid you'd say that. I've been telling myself it was nothing for months. Every piece was falling into place around Ryan, and yet somehow, on paper, in conversation, in Elena's eyes, I was still the one who looked guilty. That feeling became certain 3 nights later, when Elena sat me down at the kitchen table, like she was delivering a briefing, instead of talking to her husband. I need space, Daniel. Space? What does that even mean right now? It means I can't keep operating in a house where I don't fully trust what's going on around me. You don't trust me? I don't know what I trust anymore. Ryan thinks it might be healthier if I focus on the investigation without this hanging over us at home. Ryan thinks. Of course he does. Don't do that. Don't make this about him. It is about him, Elena. Everything happening right now is about him, whether you can see that yet or not. She didn't answer. She just went upstairs, and I sat alone at the table, staring at a half-eaten dinner, watching the last of my patience run out with the silence pressing in from every direction, wondering how much longer I could keep waiting for proof while losing everything else in the process. Captain Park's office was small, tucked at the end of a hallway most people never walked down, which felt fitting for what I was about to bring into it. Mr. Cole, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Your message said this was urgent and sensitive. I'm listening. I laid a folder on her desk before I even sat down. I have reason to believe Major Ryan Holt has been diverting funds through a shell contractor and forging approval signatures under my wife's authority. I have financial records, a witness who saw him altering documents, and another witness who can confirm he's been lying about his schedule for months. She didn't touch the folder yet. She just looked at me, careful, measuring. You understand what you're accusing a decorated officer of. I do. And you're a civilian. Your wife's husband. No offense. But that's not usually where credible allegations against senior staff originate. None taken. That's exactly why I brought documentation, instead of just an opinion. She opened the folder then, flipping through pages slowly at first, then faster, her expression shifting somewhere around the 3rd page. These transfer dates. Where did you get access to this? A friend with records clearance cross-referenced public filings against the internal contract dates. Everything here is verifiable independently. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. She kept reading, quiet for a long stretch, long enough that I started counting the ceiling tiles just to keep from filling the silence. This account routing number, she finally said, it matches a personal account under Holt's name, confirmed twice, different filings, same pattern. And the witness who saw him altering documents? Private Lena Ortiz. She's terrified, but she'll talk if you approach her directly instead of through her chain of command. She's been carrying this for weeks, afraid it would end her career instead of his. I'll make sure she's approached carefully. What about the second witness? Sarah Holt, his wife. Captain Park looked up sharply. His wife is willing to testify against him? She's not testifying against him exactly. She's confirming a pattern of lies about his schedule that lines up with these dates. I think once she understands what it's connected to, she won't have much reason to protect him. She sat back, tapping the folder with one finger, thinking, if this checks out, Mr. Cole, this isn't a small thing. This is fraud, forgery, abuse of authority. This ends careers. I understand that. Does your wife know any of this? No. That's actually the one thing I need to ask you. Go ahead. I need her told the truth before this becomes something she reads about in a report or hears secondhand from someone else in the building. She's the one whose name is on every document he forged. She deserves to hear it directly, and she deserves to hear it before it turns into a scandal, not after. That's not really how internal investigations typically work. I'm not asking you to protect her from consequences. I'm asking you not to let her find out from a headline that the man she trusted most spent over a year using her authority to build something for himself. Captain Park studied me for a moment, something in her expression softening slightly. You still care about her, even after everything you've just handed me. I do. Whatever's broken between us. She didn't do any of this. She trusted the wrong person, and he made sure she never had a reason to question it. That's exactly what makes this hard to prosecute cleanly, she said. He didn't just steal money. He engineered her trust so carefully that she'll probably defend him even after we show her the proof. I know. She closed the folder finally, pulling it toward her side of the desk like she was accepting custody of something heavier than paper. I'll open a formal review. Given what's here, it moves fast from this point. I can't promise you the timeline, but I'll make sure she's informed properly, not blindsided by a rumor or a headline before anyone in this building has the decency to sit her down. That's all I'm asking. Thank you for taking this seriously when you didn't have to. That's the job, Mr. Cole. Sometimes the hardest part isn't finding the truth. It's deciding who deserves to hear it first. Walking out of that building, I finally understood something I hadn't let myself see clearly until that moment. This was never really about love or jealousy or even rivalry between two men circling the same woman. It was about control, patient and quiet, built one small manipulation at a time until Elena couldn't tell the difference between his voice and her own judgment anymore. I hadn't lost her to another man. I'd watched her slowly lose herself to one, and I was only now standing close enough, finally, to see the whole shape of it. Every late briefing, every borrowed opinion, every quiet decision that was never really hers to begin with. I wasn't in the room when they showed her, but I've replayed it so many times since that it feels like I imagined Captain Parks sliding the folder across the table the same way she'd slid it toward me, watching Elena's face instead of the pages at first, waiting for the moment recognition hit. Colonel Cole, I need you to look at these transfer records carefully. I imagine Elena scanning the first page fast, professional, the way she read everything, before slowing down somewhere around the third line, her hand going still. This account, this routing number, that's not possible. It's confirmed through 2 separate filings, ma'am. It traces to Major Holt. That can't be right. He's the one who caught half these irregularities before anyone else did. I imagine Captain Parks sliding another page across, quiet, letting the paper argue for itself instead of pushing further. Look at the dates, Colonel. He didn't catch them. He created them, then pointed you toward a name that wasn't his. I imagine the exact second her certainty cracked. Because I know Elena, I know the specific stillness that comes over her when the ground under her stops making sense. There's some mistake. Ryan wouldn't. He's the one who flagged half these discrepancies himself. He flagged discrepancies that pointed toward your husband, ma'am. Ones that trace back to accounts under his own name. I imagine every memory rushing at her out of order. The late briefings, the leadership articles at midnight, the vacation plans that suddenly became someone else's suggestion, the way she started repeating his words instead of forming her own, the night she told me she needed space because he convinced her I was a problem. I imagine her voice breaking on a single word. No, they arrested Ryan 2 hours later, in his own office, in front of colleagues who trusted him for years. Colonel Briggs went down with him, exposed for covering the discrepancies in logistics, letting Ryan move funds without a second signature that should have caught it months earlier. Elena's command was suspended the same day, pending review, not because she'd done anything, but because command doesn't separate victim from oversight failure easily. She'd missed it, and in her world, missing it counted as a kind of guilt all its own. She came home that night after midnight, still in uniform, standing in our doorway like she didn't fully remember how to walk through it anymore. Daniel, I'm here. You knew, didn't you? Before today, you already knew. I suspected. I didn't have proof until recently. Recently? How recently? Weeks. I went to internal affairs myself once I had something solid enough to bring them. She stared at me, something between rage and devastation moving across her face. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you say his name to my face and force me to listen? I did try Elena, more than once. You defended him every single time. You told me I didn't understand command. You told me he understood you better than I did. That doesn't mean you stopped trying. That doesn't mean you let me walk further into this without pulling me back. I was trying to pull you back the only way that would actually work. If I'd accused him without proof, you would have chosen him again. You know that's true. She sank in the chair by the door, uniform still crisp, composure completely gone underneath it. I built everything, Daniel, 15 years, and I let one man quietly take it apart because I liked how sure me he sounded. You didn't let him. He engineered it. There's a difference, even if it doesn't feel like one right now. Everyone's going to say I should have seen it. My own command review is going to say I should have seen it. Maybe. But you were the one he spent a year studying, learning exactly what to say and when to say it. That's not the same as being careless. Elena, why did I trust him more than you? I don't know Elena. I've asked myself that same question for months. She didn't answer. She just sat there, uniform pressed, world collapsed, staring at the floor of the house she'd barely been present in for the better part of a year, finally seeing all of it at once. Every choice, every night, every version of me she'd stopped listening to. Ryan's court-martial happened over 3 weeks. I mostly followed through second-hand updates from Tom, brief and factual, the way endings that don't belong to you usually arrive. Guilty on the fraud charges. Tom said over the phone. Forgery, too. He's done, Daniel. Career, pension, all of it. Whitfield made sure the review board saw every page we handed them. I thought I'd feel something bigger when I heard it. Relief, maybe. Satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. The way you feel after carrying something heavy for so long that putting it down doesn't feel like victory, just absence. I didn't go to any of the hearings. I didn't need to watch him lose what he'd built on other people's trust. That part of it was never really mine to witness. Sarah called me the week after it ended. I'm filing for divorce, she said, voice steadier than I expected. I keep waiting to feel devastated, and mostly I just feel like I can finally breathe. That makes sense. Thank you, by the way, for listening that day. I don't think I would have said anything to Internal Affairs if you hadn't already been asking the right questions. You would have gotten there. I just happened to be standing close enough to hear it first. I keep replaying all the small things I ignored. Late nights I explain away. Trips I never questioned. I think part of me knew and didn't want to know. That sounds exhausting. It was. Still is. Some days. But it's a different kind of exhausting than pretending everything's fine. We started talking more after that. Nothing complicated. Just two people who've been quietly erased from their own marriages by the same man, learning how to take up space again. She started a small photography business. I started running again, early mornings, alone, rebuilding something in myself that had gone soft from years of making myself smaller. Elena and I talked properly for the first time about a month later. Sitting on the back porch instead of the kitchen table. No uniforms, no urgency. Just two exhausted people trying to be honest. I keep thinking about what you said, she started, that you did try to tell me. I did try, Elena, more than once. You just weren't ready to hear it, and I was too scared of losing you completely to push harder than I did. Would it have mattered if you'd pushed harder? Honestly, I don't know. You trusted him more than you trusted your own doubts. I'm not sure louder words from me would have changed that. That's a hard thing to hear. It's a hard thing to say. She looked out at the yard for a long moment before speaking again. Do you think we can get back to where we were? I don't know if we get back to where we were. I think that version of us doesn't exist anymore. The question is whether there's something honest we can build instead, or whether too much got broken to build anything real on top of it. That's not really an answer. It's the true one, though. I'm not going to hand you a neat ending just because it's easier to hear. She nodded slowly, like she respected that more than she wanted to. What do you need, Daniel? Right now, honestly, I need to know I'm not choosing this house, this marriage, over myself again. I spent 9 years making myself smaller so you could stand taller. I don't know if I'm willing to keep doing that, even if we stay together. That's fair. I'm not asking you to fix it tonight. I'm just telling you where I actually am. We didn't solve anything that evening. We didn't need to. For the first time in over a year, I'd said exactly what was true instead of what kept the peace. And something about that felt more like justice than anything that happened in Ryan's court-martial ever could. I finally understood the ending wasn't going to be about revenge, or even about her. It was going to be about whether I could keep choosing myself, honestly, one conversation at a time, for as long as it took to actually mean it, regardless of whatever she decided to do with the space I'd finally made for myself.